We are live to you, the Be Awesome at FM, Be Awesome at Facility Management podcast. Welcome to our first ever live podcast. We're excited to be doing this, and just so happens that we're going to talk facilities, but we're going to talk tech talk today. I want to welcome my co-host extraordinaire, making it 3 for 3, Mr. Paul Anastasi. Welcome. Looks like you're still at the beach house.
I am at the beach house. Yep.
Still not beach weather, and we've got a super guest here for our tech talk. Longtime personal friend, Mr. Rick Tremble, who is a cybersecurity expert. We'll call you. You're going to be put some fear into people about what tech what can happen when you give away that pesky password and how to protect your spaces. Technology spaces. So,
hey, Josh, the first person you put fear into is me, because although I know just enough to keep myself maybe out of trouble, I would not call me an expert in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
I just know how to get smart people in a room together.
You're going. Well, that right there is the best part of all. I always say that I will never in my life pride myself or look to be the smartest person in the room. I will just pride myself on having the smartest people in the room be hopefully connected to me to help with whatever we're doing. So we're going to dig right into technology, but in true Be Awesome at FM fashion, every week or every episode, we're going to showcase someone in the operations maintenance field that does something extraordinary, awesome, or worthy of sharing, so others in their island and their schools can say, wow, that's pretty cool, and remember how important and vital their job is. And I think in celebration of me finding out for the first time after almost 20 years that Paul Anastasi was also the transportation director at Watertown, we're going to showcase a bus driver. And I don't know if you guys have heard this story, but this is an amazing story. I read it late last year, and the title of the story is Retired FBI Executive Michael Mason Hits the Road in a Critically Important Role Driving a School Bus. I'm just going to read a little bit of the article, but this is pretty powerful. Michael Mason didn't know his next steps after retiring for the second time in December 2020. He was, however, sure of one thing. The only person he wanted to be in charge of was himself. Mason, 63, has dedicated most of his life to leading and serving others. He spent nearly 5 years in the United States Marine Corps before joining the FBI in 1985. While there, he achieved the rank of Executive Assistant Director, one of the top positions in the Bureau, before retiring in 2007. Afterwards, he worked in Verizon as a chief security officer for 13 years before retiring again last year. Last spring, Mason, a Midlothian resident, was watching the TV news when he heard about the severe bus driver shortage in Chesterfield County Public Schools. School districts nationwide are experiencing bus driver shortages, and the problem has been growing locally since 2019. Suddenly, Mason knew he'd be taking charge again, this time of a school bus full of students. When his friends heard his next career move, some of them told Mason he would be the most overqualified bus driver there was, but he disagreed. I told them, no, I'm not even a qualified bus driver. Somebody has to teach me how to drive this thing, Mason said. In March, he enrolled in the CCPS bus driver training program, was on the road by April after he earned his commercial driver's license. Long story, worth checking out, but this FBI agent at 63 came out of retirement again and has stepped into driving a school bus. And for anybody out there, there's a lot of open positions for school drivers, and it is a vitally important role. So anybody that wants to take Mr. Mason's spot, a spot like Mr. Mason driving buses for our kids, this would be pretty cool. So I bet those students on that bus really feel protected, though, when they get on. I wonder if he wears his FBI hat. I didn't know he was a Marine, which, Rick, you happen to be a Marine. And I also didn't know that he was a security technology officer. I just read the story, and it popped in my head with the buses before here. So rather fitting. So thank you, Mr. Mason, for doing what you've done for our country and now for the Chesterfield County schools. So the way this episode came into play, Paul and I, at the end of every episode, we have a debrief, and we talk about what is it we want to talk about next. And last week we had a conversation, and somewhere in the conversation, Paul made a comment of, hey, remember all those years ago when I said, and I'll let you tell the story about where's my stuff? Why don't you do this? You can do the story better justice than I can, but that's where we got to this topic of this week. So
Back when you were the salesman, the young salesman knocking at my door trying to sell me software with a more seasoned veteran. The names will be changed for this episode. We'll call him Bobby B.
Yeah.
Came in and was trying to sell me software so I could run my work orders. But you're telling me that I want to know where it was. Where's my stuff?
This was before the cloud, and it was cloud-based software, but cloud wasn't even a word yet.
Yeah, what you weren't using the word cloud. You were saying, well, we have it. And I'd say, well, why do you have it? I want it. It's my stuff. I want to be able to hold it. I want it in a floppy drive. I remember saying, I want to hold a floppy disk.
Yeah, tangible.
Right? I said, we're talking 2004, right?
Yeah.
I said, I want my stuff. And you said, and I remember Bobby specifically saying, we'll give you your stuff anytime you want it. I said, but I'm going to start building a database and work orders and HVAC stuff, and I want to be able to go back into that data and check it out, and I don't know where it is. It's not on my computer. It's like, and Bob kept saying, don't worry, we'll get you your stuff. If you decide, I said, what if I don't want to keep a contract with you anymore, and I want to go to another vendor? He said, we'll download all your stuff on a floppy disk, and we'll give you your stuff anytime. So that's where, I mean, that must have been a hard sell for you guys back then, trying to convince people that, you're going to keep our stuff and we're going to use it.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, like 18 years ago, sitting in my office where I'm sitting now, just what you can see in my camera, you can see that I have a smart thermostat. And this is a 15 foot by, I think, 12 or 13 foot space. It's not a big space. But in this office, in my space, I've got the thermostat right behind you. I have the HP 123, which is accessible anywhere I am in the world. So I snap a receipt. I can print it here. If I'm in Wisconsin, Dells, Wisconsin, I can print it here, connected. I've got 3 smart plugs, a smart light bulb, my laptop, my iPad, a Kindle, and my phone. So just in this one space, I've got 10 connected devices that all have a password associated with them.
Wow.
With everything in the cloud. Now, 18 years ago, you didn't have any of that stuff.
Right.
So we lost Rick. Maybe he's up in the cloud.
There he is.
He's
in the cloud, yeah.
He's in the cloud.
Clouds.
So the end of that story came 12 years later. We were in Exeter, New Hampshire, if you remember.
Yeah.
And Northern New England Facilities Masters Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby B had retired at that point, but living in New Hampshire. So he came by to the social event at the Margaritas. That they held it. And he was sitting down, holding court in this big booth of young people that were just starting with the company, all the young salesmen. And I come walking in the bar, and we all love Bobby B. And I yell across the bar, the Bobby B yell when he used to do this.
Yeah.
I said, hey, Bobby B, where's my stuff? 12 years later, I said, I want my stuff. And these young salespeople are sitting in the booth, and their eyes are bugging out, and they're saying, who's this guy yelling across the bar at Bob?
Yeah.
Bob's supposed to be one of those legends, those people that everybody respects, and this guy's yelling. I could see it in their eyes, and I'm saying, I want my stuff now. You told me I could have it anytime. Now's the time.
Yeah.
And he didn't even flinch. Yeah, he knew who it was. He looked over his shoulder, and we had a good laugh and had a good hug. And that's the where's my stuff story.
But it's a great why we chose this story, because just about all our stuff, and Rick, you jump in anytime and tell us, best practices and things of that nature. But in the time of that 18 years, so 18 years ago, you're talking about a floppy disk, a hard disk, a 3.5, whatever the size was. We were putting them in a computer. They weren't password protected. And now everything that we do has a password associated with it. It goes over this thing called the internet, right? And I guess an interesting question I'll pose, Rick, if you want to help me with this one, is like, how important are passwords? Like you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, right? I'm not turning myself in because I fixed it all. But we talked about the importance of unique passwords, complicated passwords, and all that stuff.
And why do I need a password on my work orders? Who's going to steal my work orders? What are they going to do with them?
I think the important thing is the fact that that's plural. Passwords. If you have one password across multiple different areas, on your email, on access to a web-based application here, access to your Netflix, access to your home network, one password, definitely a very bad practice, because as soon as that gets compromised, all of your things are compromised. And smart folks are out there, and yeah, they're criminals, but they're smart criminals are out there, just looking for ways to get into your work orders, because it's not your work orders they're after, but it's a path to something else.
Yeah. Well, that's the conversation came up because I shared with you a friend of mine that went to bed one night and he had an email from one of the hotel chains that he's an awards member at. And he just kind of blew it off. And the next morning he woke up and every one of the travel airlines, hotels, everything, they all had the same login and password. And they got access to the one hotel, and then they went to all the others and they wiped out all his points and miles. And so, and I asked you why that happened, and you said they have the same password. If you have the same password on all of that, and I never really thought about that. And I mean, I think about the importance of having a unique password for my Nest thermostat. You just don't even think about that stuff, but someone can gain access to that, right? And then once they gain access to that, they can gain access also to everything else.
Conceivably, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it shouldn't be my birthday.
Yeah.
Password.
Probably not.
Or there was a breach with a very well-known liquor delivery person, and your password, you don't want to have boozy 123, because I think that's probably the most used liquor password for that one, and all your other places. Rick, before you came on, and Paul and I talked about this, we've both been hit by cyber criminals. In December, and it's getting very interesting in how they're doing it. And so, one of the things I'd love to hear you say, some of the best practices. My two stories are simple and short. The first one, I got a text message from an executive director of a group that I hadn't talked to the person in quite some time. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have his phone number in my my phone book. But I got a text and it had a different person's name. It said, hey, Karen, I'm in a meeting now, but I'd really like to talk to you. And had his name, his title, where he was, phone number, and email address, and everything matched up in that text, with the exception of the phone number was off by one digit. So I looked up the phone number, and just a quick scan, it looked like the same phone number. And I responded back because I was excited to hear from him. I says, Hey, Tom, great to hear from you. This isn't Karen. This is Joshua Peach, da-da-da-da. And he goes, oh, no, I wanted to talk to you anyway. Can you send me a text to this number? And I was like, oh, wait a second. Now I looked again, and it was like, and I don't know what his outcome of what he wanted from me was, or that cyber criminal was. Probably at some point to click a link to manipulate or something. But somebody got his phone book, access to his phone book, and sent this text out to the entire phone book to every Karen that wasn't, to try to get as much pertinent information as possible to put out there. And Paul, I don't know if you want to share your story. Yours is a good one. Yours is a doozy.
I rent a property. I own a property in New York in the Catskill Mountains, a log cabin, and I rent it through VRBO. And I got a text one day from a potential renter, because they give out my my phone number on the site, and it said, I'm trying to book these dates, and it's telling me they're not available. Is there any way you can make them available? It was some question about dates on the calendar. And I hit the link to go and went to VRBO. And I said, those dates are free. I'm not sure why you can't access them, but they're open, and try and, get in the site again and try and book the dates. And that was the end of it. I mean, stuff like that happens all the time. People communicate with me all the time. I probably get, 1 out of 5 people that make contact with me that rent. And that was a Friday night. Saturday morning at 6:00, I have a tone for VRBO when a rental comes in. When I get a deposit, it tones off and lets me know. I get a tone. It goes bing, and I kind of like browsed over and said, "Wow, I got a rental. That's great. Must have been that person from last night." And then I heard bing, 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 and I'm saying, I can't believe that I'm renting that much. So now I'm still half asleep. I get up and I go to my my VRBO website, and I now own 12 properties. I mean, some of them I must have had $100 million worth of property. Some of them I would have loved to own. I had a 6-bedroom condo on the 27th floor in Miami Beach. It was gorgeous. And what was happening was all of these people trying to rent were putting down deposits on through my site, but the money was being funneled to these criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized something was wrong. I got myself up, went down, opened my laptop, get on the site from my laptop, and I could see all these properties. And I had properties. I had a ski chalet in the Alps. It was beautiful stuff that I wish I owned. But then I called, right away, called VRBO, and they said you'd been phished. And I love all of our new spellings now that we have from technology, but I've been phished. And the poor woman was trying to shut it down, and people were booking like crazy. And she finally got it shut down, and then she shielded me from any more of that coming in. But they had to go back. VRBO, she told me they had to go back to each of those people that had made a deposit and make good on the deposits and let them know that they weren't booked anywhere, because those were all sites. But it was just, and everything looked the same. The colors, the VRBO colors, when I clicked on that link, it was an identical mirror to any part of their website. It was amazing.
So Rick, you've heard the stories, you've given the examples, a completely different world from 18 years ago. I think we're in a different world now than the Saudi prince leaving you $15 million from an email that is definitely, something that you would say is out of whack. I mean, there's people that send you your Amazon account is frozen and you'd swear it's an Amazon link. Walk us through, some of what, I guess, guide us through some of what you think are some actionable items, how people should be thinking in the facilities department across the board in the district and leadership. But and anything that you think that would help prevent ordinary men and women like Paul and I from getting caught. And then if we do click that link, and do we just hit the X button and say, please God, I hope it's not that bad? Like what does somebody do in that world?
Prayer alone probably isn't the answer. But let's rewind to what you mentioned a second ago. Facilities managers, superintendents, and where I always like to start the conversation is cybersecurity is a leadership issue. It's not just an IT issue. Now it is an IT issue, but it is a leadership issue. There are folks, there's a good sized university that I used to work with, that their CISO, their chief information security officer, has to brief the board of trustees, quarterly or monthly. That's a good example of an organization that's decided that they're going to make cybersecurity a leadership issue and have it be all encompassing. That person, that chief information security officer that we talked about, just a few years ago, that used to be a guy that I don't know why anybody would have taken the job. Generally, they said, look, you're in charge of security. You have all the responsibility for keeping us safe from cyber attack. Mm-hmm. No authority to change anything or make any policy differences, and very little, if any, budget. And that's really starting to change. And the CISO, or Chief Information Security Officer, is becoming more empowered. Cybersecurity is becoming a leadership priority across the board for superintendents, school committees, really leadership at every level. So that's probably the first thing that we'd want to look at. And the next is it's probably not a matter of if, but a matter of when. Mm-hmm. Even folks who are really good at this, who are, are pretty wise to this can get fooled. You know, you'd be tired. You know, you gotta, you know, somebody who's a young father or young mother, and they were up with a kid with an ear infection all night before. We remember those days, right?
I'm still in them.
Yeah, you're still in it.
You're still in them.
Yeah. So, you know, they're groggy. They come in, first cup of coffee hasn't even hit the bloodstream yet, and you get that urgent, you know, email from the CFO. Hey, this needs to get paid right away. Click this invoice. I don't know why this isn't done, and you click it, and it's too late, and it's not actually from the CFO, although it really looks like it is. Maybe you know, we call it, you know, typo squatting. The web address, the email, something is just one letter off, one number off, like that telephone number of the superintendent who reached out to you via text, and it looks authentic. And they do a lot of social engineering. Again, these are not the, you know, the prince. You know, I'll give you $100 million and 7 of my prized goats. But it's a lot different now. They really are going into social media. They're going into a lot of the areas where you are, finding things out about you, finding out your work directory online, who are the people that you likely interact with, your connections in LinkedIn. And they're going into a great deal of effort into fooling you. And more often than not, they're going to be able to. I'd say one of the most important from a practical aspect for any organization is it should be like teaching your kids 911 if there's an emergency. When that happens, who do you contact? You know, what's the process when that happens? Who's the person you reach out to? You know, is the network admin? Is it the IT director? Is it the assistant superintendent? And you want to really encourage and actually praise those people, not, you know, not beat up on them when it happens, that they reach out right away. Because gaining the foothold is just the first step in a cyber attack. Getting in the door is just the first. You know, once they're in there, you know, they have to look around. They have to get to where they're going, and if they're going to plant malware, they have to plant the malware. If they're going to, you know, do something from that point of view that's detrimental to your network, it usually takes them a little time to get to that point. So the faster you can report it, the better off the organization's going to be in the long run.
So then, if you click a link or if you go someplace you're not supposed to, immediately, and from a leadership standpoint, there should be a standard operating procedure,
right?
And not hope. I mean, and the best part about this is it's not like Matthew Broderick shutting down Whopper and War Games. It's going to take time, so it is possible that, you know, you click on that link, it's not an instantaneous everybody's screwed, but it's an all hands on deck that needs to fix it fast.
And it's something that, you know, I never really thought about as a facilities manager. I mean, all my guys know that if the pipe leaks, if the pipe's broken and there's water running on the floor, call the plumber.
Yeah,
they have the numbers. They know what to do. You know, if the heat goes out, call the HVAC tech. All of those things, but I never thought about all of our guys now are on the computer. What happens if they click on something that's gone awry? Who do they call? I've never thought of that until just now.
Bad news doesn't get better with time.
Right.
We all know that employee. They started working for the district, for the organization back in the late 80s, early 90s. They worked on a ribbon typewriter for the early part of their career. They moved over to, you know, a PC sometime in the 90s. And just save versus save as can be a very difficult thing for those, but they're amazing at their job. As far as the organization, we really count on them, and they're great. And they do something like this, and they think, I don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
And they shut the computer, you know, they shut the laptop down
and unplug it.
Yeah, I unplug it. Yeah,
unplug it.
Another great one.
Yeah,
I think I'm good.
Yeah,
Control Alt Delete.
Yeah, the truth is we've got to talk to those people in the organization and let them know, hey, when this happens, by letting us know, you're not going to lose your job. You're not going to get screamed at. If anything, we're going to thank you, because now we know what we're looking for. Now we can stop something before it really becomes, hopefully, a major disaster.
Right. Right.
So everybody should know who they have to reach out to, just like teaching a kid how to call 911 when they're little, when there's an emergency. Everybody should know, hey, reach out to the IT director as quickly as possible, even if you don't think anything happened, even if you unplugged it, even if you turned it off, and do it quickly. And you're not in trouble. These things happen.
Yep.
Well, I think it puts that mindset, I don't like fear selling, but I think I've had to do it, in my career, because a lot of the stuff that I've sold over the course of my time was typically reactionary, because something happened. There was a fire and so I dealt with enough fires, enough instances with people like Paul, where something catastrophic happened that needs them to change, to record and capture and manage better. And as I was listening to you, and as I was joking a little bit in the beginning of like, you're going to put the fear in us. There's been three school districts in the news in the last 2 weeks that have had their complete everything shut down, locked down by, I guess, malware. And what did you call the email?
Email
squatting?
Typo squatting. Yeah, I meant to write that down.
Yeah.
But I think that the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this right now is that we really have to shift people's mindsets to not if, it's when, and to have a clear plan. We've got a clear plan, like Paul says. When a pipe breaks, call the plumber. We have active shooter trainings. We have fire drills. We have all these different things. But as you're speaking, I'm sitting here with my experience in schools going, I don't know many schools that actually have cyber threat training, like an in-service day where they come in and they show them what typo squatting looks like. I love that word. I'm gonna every time I spell something wrong and I have Amy look at it, she says something to me, it's just typo squatting. Want to see if people would pick up on that. But I love that, and bad news doesn't get better with time. That's just great stuff.
You want to talk about fear? I've got a quick story, and it has to do with the FBI as well. You talked about the FBI. Remember how we talked about last week, George? You hit something and your brain goes off.
Yep.
You hit a word.
Yep.
You said FBI, and we're talking about cyber. I used to go to my office in Newton. I got to my office at 5 a.m. most mornings. First one in the building. I always figured that once 8 o'clock comes and the buildings are open, my day just goes downhill, down the tubes. Like I said, nobody calls my phone to say, hi, how's your mother? And when you're a facilities manager, So I pull in the lot at 5 a.m. The lot is always empty, totally empty. I get my spot. I have to pick the same spot that faces the door. But when I pull in this time, there were two very large SUVs, all black with smoked out windows. And it was like, this doesn't look good. And my old boss always used to say, it's going to be a bad day when you get to work and Dan Rather and the 60 Minutes team is sitting in the waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm driving in and I see these, that's what I'm thinking of when I see these two SUVs, and I'm saying there's something off here. I back into my spot and they come charging across the lot and they box me in. And I said, and now I'm thinking, the first guy gets out and he's got the FBI pullover on, the jacket with very clearly marked FBI. And right away, my mind's saying, now, what did I do? Right. I'm saying, well, no, that was when I was 10 years old. I'm saying, and then I'm thinking, so I go through, and this is all happening in seconds. Then the next thing is, what did one of my guys do?
Yeah.
These guys are waiting for me because one of my guys did something. And so the guy, they're quite a presence when they all get out of the vehicle.
Oh yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, they all get out at the same time, and they tell me to stand still, and they asked who I was, identify myself. I had my lanyard on, and I could show them who I was. I said, I'm the facilities director. They said, perfect. You need to get us in the building. I says, follow me. So where are we going? They said, we need to get into your server room. All the servers were in the central office where I worked. I said, "You got it." At that point, it's like my father taught me, "Yes, sir," "No, sir." At that point, it's like, "Follow me. Whatever you want. I'll get your chair. You want to sit in the server room? Why are we here?" They're not going to tell me why we're here. We need to talk to the IT director. I'll wake him up. He usually doesn't get here until 9 o'clock. I'll call him right now. "Can I get you guys coffee?" And they secured the room. They sat in the server room until the IT director came. And there was a staff member, a teacher, who was involved in a very high level, worldwide child porn
Oh,
scheme. And he was using a computer in the school.
No way.
And it was bouncing. It was all in the news. This is all public. I'm not saying anything that was privy that people couldn't find out in public. But they were bouncing it off servers. I don't know. You know better than me, Rick.
Yes.
How they servers all over the world.
yeah.
And depending on what you brought to the table for them, there were different levels in the club of what you could see. If you brought X, you could get to this level. And if you brought, and it was the scariest thing for me, just the presence of them coming. But then when I found out what it was just totally disturbing.
But that's and you just think about what's on all your servers and everything else, and how do you keep up with that? And then what vulnerabilities you pose with all that. I don't remember that story as you're telling it, and I do remember some of it, but it
was big news when it happened, but it was amazing.
I remember something about that.
Yeah, he was a Newton teacher.
It's always tricky. Again, going back to the leadership, trying to stay at that 30,000-foot view of things. And, you have to make sometimes hard decisions about, what risk is really out there. You talked about scaring people. I'm not, nor have I ever been in the business of dealing in fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough realistic threats out there that when I go back to my Marine days and turn the map around and look at what the bad guys are trying to do, looking at things like ransomware as a service. You don't even have to know how to do this to be a purveyor of ransomware. You can go out in the dark web and find all the tools that you need. Basically, they're subcontractors that will get you into the network. They'll do the phishing or vishing, which is voice phishing. Sometimes it's calling someone up. "Oh, hi, your name's Josh. My name's Josh too. Oh my God, and then they just start a nice conversation. And before you know it, you don't even realize, hold on, what do you call? Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm from the IT contractor. So we're going in, we're getting you a new computer. That's a great news for you. But we've got to go and do an inventory of all the software everybody has. There's some licenses that aren't supposed to be on some of the devices. So I just need to go in. I need your credentials, username, password to get into the device, and I'll walk you right through. We'll be done, and you'll have you back to work in 5 minutes." And they really, really seem super friendly. They seem like your best buddy. So they do it on the phone. They do it through email. And one of the things to look out for is, never give anybody your credentials unless it's the IT director, somebody who's standing right there with you. Generally, as a rule, the answer to giving your login credentials should be no. Unless someone you directly report to is in the room telling you have to. And then anything that's really like super time sensitive, this needs to be done right away. We're going to lose XYZ. We're going to lose this contract. We're going to lose, this deal. We're going to, have to pay all this, extra financing if this doesn't get done right away. Take a deep breath, finish that cup of coffee, and determine who's asking, why they need it to happen, and
Mhm.
and confirm. Usually takes very little time or energy or effort to pick up the phone or walk down the hall and actually confirm with this person that, yeah. And again, nobody's down the hall anymore, right? We're all
Right.
working remotely.
Right.
So it doubles and triples the risk, because that person might be in Seattle, in a larger company, while you're in Massachusetts or Vermont. So, if it's particularly something super time sensitive, take a minute, get that person on the phone, contact that person, and make sure that, yes, they really did send this. I remember a few jobs ago, um, I had what looked like a valid purchase order for a whole type. Before I was in software, it was hardware, whole bunch of high dollar hardware. Um, Looked like a perfectly legal purchase order. It was tied back to a request for pricing that had been public, and I needed to ship it to this address. And I was thinking, it's just something doesn't seem right. But I've never worked with this vendor. Why do they want my inventory? Why aren't they going through distribution or going directly to, the manufacturer? Why are they buying it from me? And, I called the number, and that was in the email. It was correct. And then I went on the company website and did a little digging, and same name, different number,
Hmm.
and called this person. We didn't send you a purchase order. We don't want anything shipped. And, I don't know what made me not get fooled. Um, I will say it was one of those examples of, it's better to be lucky than to be good. And I got lucky.
Yeah.
Um, but, take just that extra step to confirm something, particularly something that seems really super time sensitive. In anything that's outside the bounds of, what you normally do, anything that has to do with moving money, or, again, credentials, your credentials or someone else's, you should really, really question that.
I think the credentials thing is important. I had a chief of police tell me once that it's always that balance of, security versus convenience.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the days when we put the teachers go out for recess, and when we started with school shootings, all the doors get locked. Teachers go out for recess, they got to get back in. Well, the first wave of that was the push buttons, push button doors with the numbers, and before we had swipe cards for everybody, and the teachers would be coming back from their recess, and there's a line of kids and the teacher's in the back to make sure she's got everybody. And she yells to the kid up front, it's 1736. Because she doesn't want to walk up, and she's watching her class, and she's got her hands full. She doesn't want to walk up. Well, then, later that night, my custodian's telling me I got 7 fifth graders running around on the second floor because they all knew, what the number was after that.
Of course.
And that was just, that's minor. But you can see how easy it is. It's convenience.
Well,
do it.
That's what it is. I mean, the more you open yourself, I'm listening to that, and I went to high school for 5 years in the early 90s, and because I was there for a little bit longer than most, I thought it was important that I have access to the elevator, and the elevator key was only given to a handful of people, the principal's office. People that would need the elevator for legitimate purposes, and there was only like 5 or 6 keys. Well, somehow I ended up with a key, and but there was only 5 or 6 keys out there. There was you couldn't get access to that elevator without those 5 or 6 keys. And now with a system like an automated system, it's just a key code. It's just a whatever it is. It's the door locks, the Bluetooth enabled door locks, and you send it to a phone. Well, that puts if you don't put a start and end date on that, and you're not paying attention to who's going in and going out, they now have an electronic key to have access to a space. So the more convenient we're getting, and Paul, I mean, you go back 30 years, you know, you had a locksmith on site that would make all the keys, and now it's card access. Now it's phones, and as much of a convenience that is, you're making it, you know, more vulnerable. Rick, I never heard of vishing, or the phone thing, which is wild.
Yeah.
And this is something that I'll say that I just found out about in December myself, which was another scam that I wasn't aware was something that was possible. You know, for years, all we had for toll-free numbers was 800 numbers. Now we have 888, 877, 866 because of the number of numbers. And so now what scammers are doing, and this was with my benefits company, my health insurance.
That's right.
I got my hard card right in front of me. I have moderately good eyesight, and I dial the phone number as I see it on the card, which was 800 da 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 da. And an automated thing says push 1 4. And of course, you just automatically push 1 because you don't want to listen to the automated service. Well, what was different was the number that I was dialing wasn't an 800 number. It was an 888 number. The other exchange was exactly the same. And so this person gets on the phone and says, how can I help you? And I said, I need to change date of birth. I need to do this. And okay, that's great. Let me take down your information. Gave him the information. Comes back and says, our system is down for another 6 to 8 minutes. While you're holding and for the inconvenience, we'd like to give you a $100 gift card, and all you have to pay is the shipping and handling of $495. And what was interesting was the $495. And, you know, through a couple of questions, seemed legitimate. I dialed the number on the back of the card. I did what I thought I was supposed to. He says, I just need to make sure that your card will get approved for the $495. So I go, all right. And I'm just sitting there, and I just want to get on with this call. I give him my credit card number. And as soon as I give him the last number of the credit card, I go, something's wrong here. And I get my card and I look at it and I go, oh no, I dialed 800 and it's 888. So before I gave him the expiration date and the CVC number, which would have been wide open for a $495 charge, which they have recorded, that's $495, not $4.95, which they would have been able to keep. I said, who's my healthcare provider? And he just goes, and he gave the wrong healthcare provider. And I said, nope, that's not who I have. And he says, well, who do you have? And I said, well, I dialed the number, and you should know. So you're obviously scamming me. I hung up, immediately called my credit card provider, because it was an electronic credit card, because now you have them on your phone.
Yeah.
Immediately called them, and within 30 seconds, they had a new number, a new expiration date, and a new CVC number. But they're getting incredibly smart to where even some people with intelligence, they can get caught on the phone. And I didn't realize that happens. I know people call and say your Microsoft license is out of warranty or whatever. I know that's a bunch of nonsense, but to have that sophistication of knowing, you know, where you work and all that stuff. And you're right. Everything's out there. You know, I listen to this stuff and I'm like, I need to get rid of my email. I need to get rid of my phone. I need to move into the mountains and pull all my information, because they can decipher it. One thing I will ask you, because I know the answer, on social media, when someone posts a quiz for you to answer your first car, your dog's names, your first girlfriend, that everybody just finds it so much fun to give all those answers to.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea?
Have you seen my response to that?
No, I haven't. But I saw one today, and I'm going,
it says, what was your first car? And it says, do not. You know, what year were you born? Give hackers what personal information over. So I for the life of me, I will never understand why people post so much personally identifiable information that they're you know
right.
It's part of a password. It's part of a something else. I mean, as we're going back to passwords again, one of the best things you can do, and it does take a little investment, you know, when it comes to cybersecurity, you've got to mitigate the risk with training people in tools. You know, you can transfer the risk with cyber insurance, which, you know, none of these is all encompassing, you know, or you accept risk, you know, and prepare for the impact.
Yeah.
In as far as mitigating risk, in addition to training folks and knowing what to do, one of the easiest and best things that folks can do is have dual authentication. put in a username and password, and then you got to get a call to your cell phone, or you got to get a 4-digit code texted to you, some separate authentication that proves you are who you are. They're everywhere. They're not ridiculously expensive, and boy, they're so important to making sure you don't get hit. And then another thing I was thinking, we went back to that card access or your thermostat. We really need to pay attention to the fact that it's not just the computers and printers. Everything that's connected in facilities, especially anything that you can access from your computer, whether it's all the projectors in the building in conference rooms and classrooms where you're getting a report back on bulb life. Well, those are networked to give you that data. Whether it's, your HVAC system. There was a huge breach years, not that long ago, where the hackers came in through a sensor on an HVAC unit. From there, they got into the network. From the network, they found their way to vulnerability, took data. It happens. There are a number of ways that really smart folks can take advantage of, otherwise, seemingly innocent things that you're just trying to use, tools you're trying to use to do your job better. So we have to really pay attention to those things as well. And a lot of those systems are protected by credentials, protected by passwords, your thermostat, your access control and camera systems, things like that.
Yeah, and I think the social media posting thing is really important. There's so many people that just feel like they're talking to the guy next door, and you're talking to the world when you're answering some of that. I mean, just me and my family are all in Jamaica for 2 weeks for vacation. Great, I'm gonna go rob your house.
Yeah,
it's like simple stuff like that. Going back to the old days when people broke an entry into houses and not even cyber stuff. It's just, you got to constantly keep that, in the back of your mind of what you're putting on social media.
That's still part of it too. It's part of it is just getting into the building and, asking someone who's walking through the building, are you supposed to be here?
Right.
I'm with the IT vendor.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's your badge?
Right.
Where's your visitor's badge? Are you signed in with the front office?
Yep.
Well, that actually would be, that's one of the last things that I think we can touch on is, people leave their computers open, and it's a whole lot easier to get access inside than it is to get access outside, right? So, the front office, they're doing attendance reports, and the person steps away from their computer, but they don't shut it down, and that person that wants to do damage comes in and just drops something in an active computer that they don't need to log into, right?
Yep.
I mean, that happens.
Have you gotten far enough in that podcast I shared with you to learn what a rubber duck is?
No, I'm still so freaked out and have had nightmares on the 14-year-old that rewired an Xbox that got into politicians' Twitter accounts that I'm still holding my teddy bear at night for the ones that I've listened to. Though, rubber duck. Tell me about the rubber duck.
Well, it's just basically a USB device that someone can go if they get access into your physical facility, and they can put that into the USB port of someone's desktop or laptop. Essentially, it's going to provide them with remote access.
Oh, wow.
Now essentially they've got a built-in device where, they can use a keyboard, keystrokes. They can then control that computer.
Does it need to stay plugged in, or does it just need to be plugged in and something downloads to the computer?
Great question. I don't know, but my presumption is it needs to stay plugged in.
So pay attention to
But again,
what's plugged into your computer.
there's always things that they can plug in just, just to get something, into the device. And then, once it's in there, it's in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the little Bluetooth thing that goes with my mouse that's plugged into my USB port. It's only that big, right? If someone put something that looked like that in there, I'd never look twice. I'd leave that in there all day long.
Paul, I'm sitting here thinking about you and I doing a class on all the stuff that we learned today to, facility conferences. And while I'm thinking about it in my head, because, we're getting educated on this stuff, and it's just common sense 101, right? You could put a one pager on what to do and how to do it. I did a search for the 773 most used passwords on Google. I don't know why they did 700. I did most used passwords, and Google decided to determine the 773. The number one password, which is a series of numbers, was cracked in under a second with 103 million uses. If that was just the United States that they were tracking, that's 1 in 3 people has the same password. I mean, we take the 7 billion, but I don't know how many people actually have computers to do passwords throughout the world, but still 103 million people had the same password that was cracked in a second or less, because that's the first password that obviously hackers are going to go to. They probably go to the 773 most used right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Josh, you gave your credit card number to someone and you changed it quickly, but you didn't give that 3-digit code on the back, and you didn't give the expiration date. But if someone's a thinking person and they go back, okay, this is probably going to expire in the next 24 to 36 months, and they start working backwards there, and they come up with some 3-digit codes, with that 16-digit number already out of the way, it gets a lot easier to get in there. And again, there's tools and there's folks that, find their way through that.
Well, every number, letter, symbol that someone that wants to do something negative has, it's one number, letter, symbol closer to them getting to their goal, which is to breach, steal, rob, paralyze. And that's the last thing, is like, these schools don't understand, what the value of their technology is.
That's enormous right there. You want to think about what's your golden goose. What is that thing? What's the data that you want to protect? If you're a manufacturer, is it intellectual property? If you're a school district, hey, student data.
Student information, parents put credit card information for food services, the budget of the school. I mean, we're talking about, a large school district is in the billions of dollars, not the millions of dollars of bank accounts and POs and P cards and everything else. So when that gets either shut down or compromised, it has huge ramifications.
HR has, when you apply for benefits, everybody's name, social security number, date of birth, and the family who's on your health benefits.
Yeah.
Where's that data living?
Yeah.
In most cases, folks have gotten a lot smarter about where that is. But again, we got to go back to that weakest link in the chain, that person who says, well, I know it's in a web-based application, but I'm going to save the PDF in this folder on my laptop because I want to work from home this weekend. And I don't want to have to go back in through the VPN to get the data. It's a pain in the neck. We're carbon-based creatures, and sometimes the path of least resistance is, like that teacher yelling the code from the back of the line, is what gets us into the most trouble.
Yeah, I know this isn't probably your level of expertise, but you might have enough to be dangerous about it. And it's something I just saw recently. There's now something called cyber insurance, right?
Yeah.
Is that the right word for it?
Yeah.
And what is that?
You have 3 options when it comes to cybersecurity. You can mitigate the risk, training people and tools. You can accept and prepare for the impact, or you can transfer some of that risk with cyber insurance. And that's just one of the tools. And, I don't know that, any one thing in particular is going to be, possible within the budget and within a limited budget,
Mhm.
and is going to do the trick. But in most cases, most organizations use a combination of the three.
Mhm.
So I have a question here. I just went and got my prop. This
Of
these are my passwords.
course.
So my question is, and the reason I have it printed off so
Don't
nice
put it
and
too
neat-
close to the camera there. Don't
Yeah.
put it too close to the
Yeah.
camera.
The reason I have it printed off so nice and neat is because I had them on my notes pad on my phone, right? And which connects to my laptop and connects to my tablet. I leave my tablet on the plane when I get off, coming home from South Carolina, and now my tablet is traveling somewhere around the world, but it had everything that I had on it. So I went into the notes that I use and I deleted that file, but I printed it off first. Like, where do you do I keep that on paper and keep it in my briefcase like I do? It's like, how do I remember all my passwords?
Well,
Where do I go? What do I do?
there are some great solutions out there, and it kind of like dual authentication, where you can have a for lack of a better term, a password manager.
Yeah.
That is a digital. You have one way to log in and to dual authenticate, and then this digitally maintains all your username and passwords and accounts, and takes some work up front, but again, makes things a lot safer down the road.
Yeah, I hated that whole dual authentication, whether it was via text or the app. And now I don't think I could live without it. And if I don't get that ping on my phone, then I'm like, did I go into the right place? What's going on? It definitely gives me an added layer of feeling secure, and that hopefully people don't have my cell phone, leave my laptop and my cell phone, in the same place.
But they still give you an out. Even my bank has a spot to click. When I go to the double authentication, there's a spot to click that says, don't ask me this next time.
Right.
They give you the out to just go back to
that's because the majority of people complain about it, and they think it's an aggravation, that extra click, or having your phone next to you when you're on your laptop or what have you. And they probably run the risk of feeling like they're going to lose enough customers by giving them a headache of added safety. But it's kind of like, would you buy a car without a seatbelt today?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't think I would. I'd like a seatbelt, but in the 80s, we never wore them. We fought it when we had to wear the seatbelt. We took the shoulder part off and put it behind us, so we just had a lap belt. So if we got pulled over, you could say we had a seatbelt on, but not appropriately. I after talking to Rick and hearing from my friend and reading a couple of these stories, I came to the realization that you need to take a real hard look at what you're doing and how you're doing it, and passwords. Like I said, that my poor friend had one password for all of his stuff, and I actually had one of my passwords did get compromised and got into the dark web, and thankfully that password was only for that one page. And that's luck. I don't know, it was before all this stuff happened, but we really need to start to get people to do things a little bit differently, and think about it a little bit differently. I think the takeaways here, I got pages of notes, and I have the luxury of calling Rick just about every time I call Rick. He answers the phone, and I call him for a minute and we talk for an hour.
He says, what did you do? Now what did you do?
I still got like 3 pages of notes. But I think in every facility department USA, I think the first and foremost thing is that there needs to be a professional development that you bring your team into, and you say, let's not think about if, let's think about when. And when this happens, you do this when it comes to technology. Because our facility staff, Paul, you're going to agree with me on this. I know the statement that I'm going to make. Facilities departments, custodians, maintenance and operations professionals in education, they want to help and they care. And if someone sends an email that looks like a teacher or a superintendent and they say, I need this done now, I don't know if it's adrenaline or what it is. They immediately look at it and they want to help and they care and they want to get it done quickly. So it's very easy for that emotional side of them to take over and for them to click on that link or for them to send something or do something. And so just the training on breathing. Hey guys, you get an intense email, take a breath, take a look, make sure that it doesn't have any typo squatting. Thank you. I get to use that. But really make sure that your team understands that at some point in time, there's going to be a compromise. And when that happens, if it's you, ring the bells, raise the flag, and let people know so that they can address it quickly.
But
as
some
if
of them,
it was a flood.
you don't even realize like what the end game could be. I got caught in one. Wayne, the past president from our association, he got hacked, and I get a text from Wayne. It's using his language, the way he talks to me, about a meeting that we're going to have the next day, asking me, because we always do like door prizes and stuff at our meetings, asking me to buy 4 $50 Amazon gift cards. So what's their end game if I have 4 Amazon gift cards?
You send them to them. They want you to get those Amazon gift cards, and then they're going to want you to send them to wherever it is.
If I continue, but it was like, I know I'm going to see Wayne in a couple of days, so I'll bring him to the meeting. I thought Amazon was on a board. Was doing it at first. Maybe Amazon was doing it just to increase their sales.
So I served on a board, different association than the one you're talking about. Served on a board. It encompassed 12 states. All of our names, emails, and phone numbers were all on the board association contact us page. An email went out to the entire board from what was thought of as the president of the association and we had an upcoming event in 3 days that we were all going to see each other. And this email looked so real that 5 of the board members went out and bought Walmart gift cards and put them in the mail to a P.O. box that wasn't even where the president lived. It wasn't even the state of the city. It was a completely separate entity, but they were so sold into the idea that these gift cards were needed for the upcoming conference and he needed to have them before we all got there, that these 5 people all went out and they bought gift cards, and some of them were like $500 and they were out. It was gone. Like you can't. No,
I kept my Amazon. I kept my Amazon gift cards and spent them myself.
Yeah.
Amazon, they don't last too long in my house.
But
but the way I found out was I tried to call Wayne. And it wouldn't connect my phone to his contact. That's how sophisticated this was. So I kept trying to call, and it would kept dumping the number. So I called my good friend Brian Lynch and said, "Can you call Wayne and ask him, what we need to do with these cards?" And he came back and said, Wayne's been hacked. It's a hoax. But it was so sophisticated, it controlled my phone.
Yeah. I mean, you go online on a social media every day, and if you go through your thread, I bet you don't get 15 seconds into it, and you've got a contact that says, "I've been hacked. Don't take my additional friend request. Hacked. Right. And you look at some of the people, you go, these people are no different than me. How do they get hacked? And the reality is, like you say, Rick, it's not if, it's when. This has been unbelievably informative, eye-opening, because as I'm sitting here thinking through, and Paul, I could see your head spinning with some of this stuff where it was like, you never thought of this. I've never thought in my career and working in the technology space that the technology that we provided involved emails, that those emails could be, who wants to see my work orders or who wants to see my stuff, but what is it, right? So it looks like I got some. Can you guys see the chat?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is, but I'm sure that's an interesting chat message. So
I can't see it.
Oh, good. But no, this has been great, Rick. Thank you for enlightening us and giving us your time here today and putting a little fear into us and giving us some definite call to action for our facility teams, because they need to be, everybody needs to be involved. Everybody needs to take ownership. And I think everybody needs to be on high alert when it comes to cyber threats. This was great.
Thank you.
Well,
all right,
Paul, we'll wrap this thing up and we'll talk about next week's episode, and appreciate you making the time from the beach house again.
Yeah. It's my favorite place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that'll do it for our first live podcast episode. As always, we love the 5-star ratings and reviews. You get a free t-shirt, a coffee mug, or tumbler based on what you don't have, because Even though nothing in life is free, if you give us your time and effort and giving us a 5-star review on any of the podcast platforms, we want to give you something special. And we're just really excited. We're having a lot of fun. We're having great guests, and we'll be up and online next week again. So if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day.